He's truly a rock and roll legend, one of the most successful performers from the pre-British invasion era, and he's still recording today. He's got a dozen top 40 hits. It had them in the late 50s, early 60s with the Belmonts, and as a solo artist. I Wonder Why, Teenager in Love, The Wanderer, Run Around So I Could Be Here All Afternoon. They all became standards. Throughout his 6-decade career, he's recorded over 40 albums, and his latest, Blues with Friends, is just that, 14 tunes steeped in the blues, featuring friends who just happen to be some of the greatest musicians of all time. He's here with me tonight to tell us about his most recent album. Please welcome back to the program a member of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, my pal, DION. DION, thanks for being with us.
Yo, good to be with you all.
Well, it's always a pleasure to have you back on the show. Let's start with this new album, Blues with Friends. And boy, you've got great friends. Bruce Springsteen, Van Morrison, Paul Simon, Jeff Beck, the list goes on. How did the idea for this album come about? And how did you manage to corral this talent?
It's crazy, Raymond. I wouldn't be able to plan it if I tried. I had 14 great songs that I wrote. They seem to have been the best batch of songs I ever wrote. I was under the spout where the glory comes out, or, you know, under the wellspring of creativity. And I had 2 months off while I was working on the play, The Wanderer. And I thought, let me go into the studio and knock these songs out. Because it took me about 4 years, in the writing. So I went in, cut them in 3 days. Joe Bonamassa comes over my house and listens to a song called Blues Coming On. He says, "Dion, that's a great track. Let me play on it." I said, "Joe, be my guest." Well, when he played on it, Raymond, I kid you not, I know how to write a song, I know how to sing a song, I know how to make a great record. But I truly believe that after listening to him, I said, I am limited in my ideas and my, the concept of how I want these things to evolve. And I think it's fair to say that Joe Bonamassa gave me the vision for it, because when I started listening to the other songs that my other tracks, I thought I had a ballad. For instance, I had a ballad. I said, who could play on this? And I thought of Jeff Beck. I said, he's the only guitar player who can make me cry. I heard him do Puccini's Arroyo, Nessandora, and he can make me cry. So I sent him the song, and he said, I'd love to play on it. Well, when Jeff Beck said yes, I knew he was like the gold standard, He has magic in his hands. I thought this is a good thing, and then I had a song called Bam Bang Boom. So I'd sent it to Billy Gibbons, from ZZ Top. He's like John Lee Hooker on steroids. And the things started shaping, and I just rode the wave. I kept asking friends, and that's what you got here.
It's an incredible, it is an incredible outpouring of who you are in your artistry, and also these other people coming in. And it's interesting, as I read some of the reviews, they say, as great as these people are around you, you have the distinction of being able to retain your brand, your power, your artistry, and they never, according to these reviewers, they never bypass you or overwhelm you, which sometimes happens when you have guests come into a piece. I want to give people a sense of the album. Here's one of the first tracks. It features Bruce Springsteen and his wife, Patty. It's called Hymn to Him. Listen to this, then I want you to comment on it.
Come to Him through the darkness. Come to Him through the rain. Walk with Him from misfortune. Walk with Him from the pain. He's the light of salvation, head that's never bowed. He's the first step of wisdom. He's the sun through the clouds. Walk with Him. Blend your life with His blessings. Drink the wine of tomorrow. Yesterday must be banished with the seeds of your sorrow.
That is such a gorgeous piece, Dion. Tell us about the song. It was originally recorded for an album you did in the mid-'80s. Why did you decide to resurrect it here?
This is the one song that I had recorded back in the 80s, and I just didn't like where it settled. I always thought that I could, I wanted it to live somewhere else. And I said, Patti Scialfa would be a great person to sing some harmony with me. She's the Jersey soul girl. So I sent it to Patti, and she loved the song, and so did Bruce. And she went into the studio, and this is the great thing about this album. It's thrilling to get these masterful, monster, distinctive, mesmerizing artists that get their concept and infuse it on my song. It's like, so Patti goes in, I thought she was going to sing harmony with a few lines and maybe echo a line here or there. Mm-hmm. She stacked about 9 or 10 vocals, and she captured like the wind of the Holy Spirit or something, a higher reality. Wow. Then Bruce walks in the room with his gravitas guitar, and he captures the universe for sure with this big sound, and and I'm listening, and this is the fun thing about this album. I had such a great time playing, working with these artists, because every time I heard a contribution, it was thrilling to me. It was like so much fun to listen to. And I got excited for the next song, and I started casting different guitar players for songs, but I didn't have any stress about it. It was such a labor of love and fun for me.
It all came together, yeah. It just all came together. You've never shied away from your religious convictions, Dion. Were you worried that the subject matter of that particular hymn to him might scare off Patti and Bruce Springsteen?
No, they embraced it. They have... they're naturals. Bruce grew up right in back of him was a Catholic church, so he has a lot of stories when I read his book. But he had, it's in his DNA. So they responded to it so lovingly. They didn't have, there was no pushback or anything. They embraced it, and we love each other actually. So we support each other. Yeah. It's a good. But let me tell you a story.
Feel that covers this album, Dion. I mean, you hear the love and the affection and the camaraderie and the respect everybody has for one another on this project. But you wanted to say something. Go ahead.
Well, I wanted to tell you a funny story. My wife, Susan, we've been married 57 years, have 3 beautiful children, 5 great grandchildren. I mean, wonderful grandchildren. If you get in my wife's car, she has like 12 Van Morrison albums. Her favorite singer is Van Morrison. And I always told her, Susan, we're soul brothers. So I get this song, I Got Nothing. And the song is called I Got Nothing. And when you're singing with Van Morrison, nothing is more than enough. So I go into the studio with him. And Raymond, I got to tell you, you haven't lived until you sing with Van Morrison. It's just so much fun. But after I did this song, and I put it in the CD player in the car, and Susan heard it, Raymond, I am in for the next 30 years.
You finally made it.
I finally impressed her.
It took all these years. That's pretty good. Maybe I need to get Van Morrison's number to see if I can get in the club at home, too. That might work, Dion.
I'll text it to you right now.
Text it to me. Thank you. Look, you've recorded so many different genres: doo-wop, rock and roll, pop, country. And since 2006, you've really majored in blues. Now, folks still think of you as that doo-wop kid from the Bronx, but one reviewer recently described you as a Catholic blues man. Do you agree with that description?
Well, Catholic is universal, so I'll take it, I'll take it. It's a funny thing. The blues is a community. We listen together, we play together, we enjoy together. And I always say you're never alone with the blues. I always think of we gotta get back to love and serving one another and caring about each other, Right. And this kind of music, you don't have to think. It's so natural. It's a God-given form, the blues. It's the naked cry of the human heart, longing to be in union with God. And when you listen to it, it just brings you together. It brings you closer. It gets you out of yourself. Instead of winding in and winding down and exploding, it gets you into a place of friendship and understanding, love and brotherhood, and that's what we need,
DION, when we were talking once, you connected the blues to the Psalms of King David one time, and I thought that is an amazing connection that I had never made before or thought about.
Well, I always say, Raymond, and you know it because you know what the Psalms say. The Psalms are songs. So if you had to retitle, if you wanted to retitle the Psalms, you could call them the blues, because like I said, everybody's crying out. King David, he's crying out to be in union with God and get some peace and serenity, tranquility in his life, and,
Powerful. They're powerful. I need to show folks this, DION. This is an amazing picture we dug up to give them an idea of how long you've been doing this. Now, this is you at 12 years old singing a Hank Williams song to Tony Bennett. He eventually recorded, by the way, Cold, Cold Heart and had a hit with it. Tell me about your earliest influences. Who inspired you to be a musician?
Raymond, when I was a kid, I must have been 10 years old, 11 years old. I had a transistor, and under the blankets at night, I tuned into Wheeling, West Virginia, and I must have hit a station. I heard Honky Tonk Blues, and it blew my mind. The next day I was at the record store. I said, I heard this song, Honky Tonk Blues by Hank Williams. Do you know who, and then I started collecting Hank Williams. I went back to the station. I heard Jimmy Reed. Raymond, when I heard Jimmy Reed, I have never been the same. I'm still like that. Since I was 10, it's still thrilling to me to listen to this stuff. So those are my early influences. And that, Raymond, without Jimmy Reed, I don't think I'd be talking to you here today.
Wow. No, I hear that influence. You can hear that and Hank Williams. It's Americana. It's a uniquely American sound. When we were talking the other day, I said what I loved about this album is at a time when America is being challenged and questioned. The reason your album, Blues with Friends, I think is the #1 blues album in the country on Billboard's chart, is because people are yearning to reconnect with that Americana sound. And these are like the Mount Olympus of American singers and performers that you've brought together. There's something unique about that in this marketplace at this moment. And there's a track on the album that, to my ear, couldn't be more timely. It's called A Song for Sam Cooke, here in America. And it's you and Paul Simon. I'm going to play a little bit about it, and then I want you to talk about it. Roll that.
We traveled this land back in 1962. We played the places that were home to me and you. We drove to Memphis, we rocked the set. We walked the streets at night and smoked a cigarette here in America. Here in America, there was so much I didn't know about the saw the people stop and stare. You did your best to make a Yankee boy aware. I never thought about the color of your skin. I never worried about the hotel I was in here in America. Whoa, whoa, yeah, in America. In America.
Now, Dion, you knew Sam Cooke. You toured with him through Memphis. Where did this song come from? Is it biographical?
You know, I toured. I think this is a lovely story, Raymond, because I toured with Sam Cooke for 6 weeks, and he was a very intelligent, kind of refined guy. He was the son of a preacher, so he wasn't afraid to talk about God, you know. And you know, I saw him in a lot of situations. We traveled in the South, and I never experienced anything like that because I knew, you know, I come from the Bronx. There was racism in the North, but it wasn't the same because my mother worked in the millinery line. She worked with Black, Jewish, Asian, whatever, you know, I never heard, my parents, I never heard a disparaging word against any kind of ethnic group. But I was rough around the edges, and Sam was a very refined guy. And when I heard people calling him names, sometimes to his face, I'd go up to him and say, Sam, give him a right hook, just whack him like this or hit him like that. You know, I was like a tough kid, you know, and he'd say, Dion, you know, that's a peculiar way to become a man. You know, if race matters to you, you're a racist. He said, to us, it doesn't matter. It's like eye color or shoe color, you know? So, you know, the thing is, I watched him under a lot of circumstances, you know, in a lot of, and he never got ruffled. He never responded badly or reacted, you know, and then it dawned on me why. He was the brightest guy in the room. And he started teaching me because he wasn't afraid to talk about faith and a higher reality and a higher pitch and, you know, and just a better way to do things. You know, he wanted to change the world. He wrote, change is going to come. And he did it through his music, through his writing, through his performing. But most of all,
Record company.
But most of all, he did it through brotherhood and friendship and understanding. And he taught me. So when I had this song that I wrote for a long time and I never recorded it. And last year I saw a Green Book, and I said to my wife, I said, Susan, they did a movie about my song, but it's like in reverse. I said, I took it out of the back of the drawer, dusted it off, had lunch with Paul Simon, put it before him, showed it to him, said, Paul, this is not a song solely about racism. It's about brotherly love. Sam was living out the gospel, loving his brother as himself. I said, I learned so much from this man. And Paul got it. He knew where. And he said, Dion, I hear what I want to do on it. Give it to me. Give it to me. So went into the studio and he did something sublime with it. So I'm glad you mentioned this song because I really.
No, it's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you, Raymond.
And so timely today. I mean, it speaks to today in this moment. And again, that wisdom, that shared knowledge, that understanding, you lived through all that history. You know, I've interviewed Johnny Mathis in the past who had a similar, you know, he went through the same hardships that Sam Cooke, Nat King Cole, some of those other folks did, traveling through the South or even trying to work in Vegas, where they were in separate hotels, had to enter through the back door of these casinos where they were headlining. I mean, it was a very different world for black performers and entertainers in that era. And their dignity and class and talent overwhelmed the racism of the moment, and now, you know, they're iconic and you know,
it did,
again,
you know, Sam,
part of that American story.
Sam Cooke took me to a club in Memphis to see James Brown before anybody knew him. You know, James Brown and the Flames. And everybody was going, who's that? You know, like, it was in reverse. Reverse discriminate, you know, so he was going, the kid's with me. my friend, this is Dion. You know, he's with me. Leave him alone. You know. So, basically that's what the song is about. Our friendship. You know, I
I
remember
love it.
him. You know, he was such a great guy that I miss him. And this is like 60 years ago. Raymond, would you believe it?
Amazing. It's amazing. Bob Dylan penned the liner notes for this new album. He had this to say about you and your music. When you have a voice as deep and wide as Dion's, that voice can take you all the way around the world and then all the way back home to the blues. Dion knows how to sing, and he knows just the right way to craft these songs, these blues songs. He's got some help, or some friends here to help him out, some true luminaries, but in the end, it's Dion by himself alone and that masterful voice of his that will keep you returning to share these blues songs with him. How does that kind of recognition from a man widely regarded as one of the greatest songwriters really of our time and your contemporary strike you when you first read those or read them?
Well, you know, every time Dylan writes something, it seems like I learned something I didn't know. I don't know what that is about him, but he's just my definition of a genius is whatever they're doing in their particular field, the distance between what they're doing and everybody else is doing is definitely a distance. And Dylan is, you know, when I finished the album and I sent it to, you know, I had all my friends play on it. I had no more songs. I said, I'm going to ask Bob Dylan if he'd write something for it. I go back to the early 60s with Bob Dylan, and I sent it to him. And, you know, we all know he's the greatest songwriter of the 20th century, and he won a Nobel Prize. But a lot of people don't know he's a great blues singer, and he's steeped in the tradition. So I sent it to him, and it really touched me, you know, what he sent back. It really, and it was insightful, too, about, I love the line that he said, you know, there's a built-in law in the blues. You don't have to overpay for them. What he's saying is, I think he's talking about the commandments, the natural, you know, the law that's written on your heart, you know. You don't have to kill yourself to sing this stuff. We all have the blues. I mean, John Paul too had the blues. He was born in Poland with communism and the Nazis and the, you know, I mean, the guy was brought up. You don't have to be, you know what I mean? We all experience, we all suffer in some way, you know?
Yep. No, suffering is the thing that unites us.
Yeah.
You recently released a 1965 Columbia recording that had been shelved and never released. It's called Kickin' Child. It was recorded at the time you were in the depths of addiction. It has been lauded as one of your best albums. And you said in an interview recently that when you listened to it sober, it seemed like heroin never touched it. What was special about those sessions, done with Dylan's producer at the time, I might add?
Yeah, well, he was producing both of us. Tom Wilson, great guy.
Right.
You know, I went in with a band. I had great songs, and I sang this stuff. And Columbia I was evolving. I was developing as an artist. But they wanted me to stay in a certain place. And I've never been able to do that. My artistic curiosity gets the best of me. You know, God, you know, you can't stay in one place. I'm growing every day, you know. So, but Columbia did not want to release this album at the time. And there was so much negativity around it, I forgot it for years. And then somebody found it in the back room. They released it about 5 years ago. And I was driving across the country. I went to meet up with Tom Monahan over at the Ave Maria College. And I'm driving back across Alligator Alley, and I slip it into the CD player, and I'm listening to it, and all the negativity that surrounded that album, the fight, I left Columbia over it. They didn't want to release it. It just all fell away, and I'm listening to the album, and I'm saying, wow, this is really a great album. It was just, I mean, it was done live. And you know, all that negative, it's funny how you kind of have all this stuff piggybacking that artistic endeavor, you know, and then all of a sudden that slipped away. I heard I heard what was there, and I said, not bad, you know. But
I'll
you want to
say,
know?
yeah.
I was using heroin back there in the mid '60s, and in 1968, Frankie Lyman, who I ran with and took drugs with, he died in 1968, and it just bothered me. It just touched me and broke me. And I got on my knees and I said a prayer. Raymond, when I stood up, God removed the obsession to drink and drug. I haven't had a drug or drink for 52 years. And
Wow.
and that's what got me on the path to grow spiritually, because I became aware of God's power. And as I grew a little more, I became aware of his reality. And here I am on your show, and I'm, sounding good, feeling good, still married. So God is good. He's great.
I'll say, absolutely. I want you to update us on the status. You talked about your story and really that, that big moment in your life and your artistry. There's a Broadway musical coming based on your life, The Wanderer. It was supposed to open this year. Due to the COVID-19, it's been postponed. When will The Wanderer premiere, and what can folks expect when it opens? Did you write new music for it?
No. Well, there's a couple of songs I wrote, but
Okay.
the musical, Raymond, I was never a Broadway guy, a theater guy. I'd rather go to a blues club, a rock and roll club. But this kid, Charles Messina, great writer. You give me something of substance, you could entertain me all day long. He has, I'd say he has history in it. He has early street rock and roll, romance, betrayal, victory, laughs. There's great music. It's a story about transformation. It's a story about addiction and not getting better, like becoming good. It's a story about transformation, and it really is. It's I don't know how he did it, but he did it. It's talk about an American story. Like I always say, the album that I just did, I say it's a story about us, Americans. Right. People like Sonny Landreth, who's a virtuoso. He's beautiful. And every decade is present on the album. Like Samantha Fish, she's 30 years old. What a guitar player. I never heard anything like it. And she's from New Orleans,
Yes,
so
I know.
So is Sonny Landreth. And there
Well,
are
how can you do the blues? How do you do the blues without a little New Orleans, Dion?
Raymond, there are no bad musicians in New Orleans. Even the
true.
people on the street corners. I don't care what they're playing. They could be playing spoons. I never heard anything like it. Yeah, if you're a bad musician in New Orleans, they chase you're out. You're gone.
Yeah. That's right. If you're, you know what they always say, if you're a bad musician in New Orleans, you're in Thibodeau. That's what they say here. So, look, I've got to, before I run out of time, we lost Little Richard recently, May 9th of this year. I know you knew him. I read the other day, it's really only you and Jerry Lee Lewis from that first wave of rock and roll that remain with us and are still active. What's the secret to surviving and thriving this long, Dion?
Well, the short of it is I'm a man of prayer. I bought those hands when I was 14 on 14th Street. But,
wow.
I think that has a lot to do with it, Raymond. You're when you're hooked up, it's like you're plugged in. You have all the health and the beauty and mystery and awe and wonder and just God is exciting. The brightest people wrote for the church. There's a lot. People say all kinds of things about religion, but they're not. They heard it somewhere. They make it up. It has no ground. The beauty of it is it's so real and so beautiful, and the truth will give you health. You cannot. What keeps you in bondage and hurting error. The truth will set you free. And it's good to be free. I was a weird kid, Raymond. I used to read St. Thomas Aquinas when I was a teenager. And he said, if you don't have God in your life, you are going to try and fill your life with the 4 great temptations, the typical addictions: wealth, pleasure, power, and honor. It's money, the sex, drugs, rock and roll, power, the politicians, the honor. Don't you know who I am? I'm right, and I got to win. I got to be better, and I got, all that you got to fill your heart with. You got to fill yourself up with that. And it'll never give you eternal rest in your soul, that rest that you'll. Bruce Springsteen, that's why he liked Hymn to Him. He wrote a song called Everybody's Got a Hungry Heart. It's exactly what Augustine said. He said, hearts are restless until you come to rest in God alone. Now, once you do that, God shapes your desire for those things. They're not bad things. Money, relationships, power, pleasure, honor. They're not bad things. But trying to run your life on self-will, Raymond, for me, it was disastrous.
For all of us. Yep, for all of us. It always is. Well, I love that. And you see that in your work, that sparkle, that light, and that only comes from, as you said, that relationship, that you're hooked up to the source of creativity and beauty and truth. And you hear it in between the lines of your work and on the surface. So I thank you for the new album. I also want to wish you a very happy 81st birthday coming this Saturday, July 18th. DION, thank you for the music, for the insight, and I hope you'll come back very soon.
Stay well, Raymond. Stay safe. Stay strong. God bless you, buddy.
God bless you. Thank you. DION's Blues with Friends is available now at iTunes, Spotify, wherever music is sold. And for those of you of a certain age, Blues with Friends is out on vinyl Friday, July 17th. Thank you so much, DION. Talk to you soon.